Today we're going to show you how to check to see if the IBI subsystem is active in your environment. So in order to do this, we're going to submit a batch job, and that batch job we're going to create. So I'm going to come over here into 2, and then select my JCL PDS. And I called mine CK for check subsys. So notice in here, all I have is an exec step. I can actually submit it this way, and because I didn't give it a job card, the system will prompt me for a prefix, or I'm sorry, a suffix, that it's going to append to the end of your user ID for the job name, and it's going to take any system defaults. So notice in here, I'm running program subsys, and it's coming from a data set, which is where you have your folklive.load. So I'm going to add, I'm going to change this to a real name, folk. And this is for a 7.6.13 version. And then when we run it, we're going to run the following commands. D is for display, so I'm going to display the subsystem. And because the subsystem controls a lot of things, we're also going to check for IBI prod, and we're going to display any settings for hyperbudget. So we might as well do them all at once since they all come from the same library anyway. So once we're done, we can go ahead and submit this. Notice it's asking me to enter the job name characters. This is going to be appended to the end of my user ID. So I'm just going to put A, and job was submitted. So now I can pop over to SDSF or whatever you use to check your jobs, find that particular job, and notice inside of here, this is the command that we submitted. Notice it was prefixed with IBIS because that's the name of my IBI subsystem, is IBIS. So there is subsystem information. And then we have the other information. We have the IBI prod, which identifies an address space. And then lastly, we have the hyperbudget information. So this tells me that, yes, the subsystem is active in this environment. So what would it look like if I didn't have a subsystem active? Well, I'm going to come back over to my JCL. And I happen to have one, which is in my APF library load. And this one is pointing to a subsystem called IBIT for test, which I know isn't up and currently running. We're going to run the exact same commands. We're going to submit this now. Again, we're going to ask for job characters. I'm going to give it B this time. Submitted. We head over to check the job. And notice in here it says the IBIT, and then D subsystem, D IBI prod, and D hyperbudget are all invalid commands. And specifically the IBIT command is invalid. And that's because the subsystem wasn't up in order to receive the command, so the system didn't know what to do with it. So that shows you what to look for and how to check if you have a subsystem up and running, and what it would look like if you don't have one up and running.